Welcome everyone to Rain Dance Film Festival. 7 or 8 years ago, I opened one of many cassettes that I was that I had to watch to select a film for the Rain Dance Film Festival. And I saw this amazing film by a first-time filmmaker set in a high school with a real edge and real grit and real attack. I loved it. So we programmed it. That film was called Pep Squad. And then I get a phone call, actually from a friend, Clark and Stephen, you may not know this, a friend was over in the States in LA back in April, May, and heard about a new film called Firecracker. Did I know the filmmaker? And as soon as I said the name, of course I knew them. The film that I saw, Firecracker, which you're about to see, was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. And please join me in welcoming back to London and to Rain Dance, the writer-director, Mr. Stephen Balderson.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. I'm going to just say thank you for coming. And I know that some of you have been really excited to see this for quite some time, mainly the people that were actually in it, of which there are a few here. Clark's going to introduce all of them, because I think he wanted to get down here and be all excited. This is my dad, Clark. Come on. Thank you all for this opportunity, and enjoy is not quite the right word. I hope you have a good experience. Thank you.
First off, hello. First off, people who want seats, please come sit. You're the most important ones here.
Gentlemen, due to unforeseen circumstances, we are unable to continue with this performance. It is necessary to ask you to leave the building immediately using the nearest available exit.
That may be what that thing was doing.
By the cinema staff. Ladies and gentlemen, due to unforeseen circumstances.
We really didn't make a film. This was all part of...
They broke a fire glass inside the Trocadero Center, so the whole system starts.
Ah, right, okay.
So we have to reset everything.
Well, welcome to Rain Dance. Okay, we'll start.
Thanks for coming very much.
They need to reset the system.
Well, do we have questions?
Yes.
Where is the red carpet? I got dressed up tonight.
So did I.
Yeah. Why are you here? I mean, I know why I'm here.
This is important because one of the things that Clark and Stephen need to do now is sell the film to a British distributor. And we're delighted with the turnout. But those of you who aren't involved with cast or crew, what tweaked your attention? What maybe made you phone up and try to get down here?
I want to see Mike Patton act.
How many are here because they're curious about Mike Patton? What we've seen in the U.S. as we've screened this, and only just for very few people just in our area, is that people under about 32 or 3 know immediately who he is. And old fogies like me have never heard of him.
Are they ready now? No?
Okay, I'd like to sing a few numbers.
No, you won't.
We can start.
Okay.
Thanks
Good.
for your patience.
The only reason I'm not staying is because, well, the most important experience, I think, for anybody is right after the movie finishes. So, no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm so interested in people's perspectives of how they react to something because it tells me how they've lived or how they see something. So I'm really, really most fascinated about how people are when they leave and what they have to say or what, you know, if just the different reactions. It's a very strange movie to walk away from because people often feel numb. So within that scope of sort of shock and sort of depression and numbness, it's just fascinating to talk to people afterwards. But I don't need to see them experiencing the journey. But as soon as they have finished the journey, then I'm very curious. And you're...
I'm not supposed to tell you, but there was a problem with the sound.
I heard.
Yeah.
But this is why I don't watch these things.
In case something goes wrong.
Every theater is
Standard.
totally different. It looks different in every theater, it sounds different in every theater, and it drives me crazy.
Susie, come here a second. One of the questions was it intense to film it? And for the most part, we had a lot of fun. But Pleasant mentioned last week that the scene in the trailer when Patton comes in and is slapping everybody around was very tense. I mean, for all of you.
Oh, sure.
I guess the Enigma dang near hit him. I mean, he got so...
That was fun.
And ironically, I know a lot of your Patton fans. I think he does good. You know, particularly both characters. He's a jewel to work with. He's not at all like what he is like on stage.
Well done. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for inviting us. Really impressive.
Thank you. It was good to meet you.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
Not what you expected.
No, not at all. It's a lot more
You
intense.
sort of, you go in, I mean, we're Mike Patton fans, you go in to watch Mike Patton. you
Yeah,
come
it's
out
not a
thinking,
Mike Patton
It's not a Mike Patton at all.
typical his performance.
Karen Black stole the movie. Absolutely.
So I started crying and I was horrified because I thought I was going to make a lot of snot, and then there was two people behind me were crying. No, I mean I didn't want to go. I thought I was going to have to be like.
Who was crying behind you?
I don't know. It was dark.
But it wasn't one of us.
No.
Okay, that's a good
No,
sign.
no, people we didn't
Okay,
know.
good.
Two people we didn't know in two different directions. So I'm like, okay, I can
Can
slip
I tell
up.
you my favorite scene? That just kind of like psychologically, I mean, it was just so good. It was just so Alfred Hitchcock, where Jimmy is
clothesline?
Yeah, the
Oh my God,
clothesline.
that was so good.
The build-up was so.
It was the first scene I ever thought or saw for the whole movie
Really?
when I was 18.
Anyway, any other questions?
Was there any particular reason you got the two main characters to double up?
Well, the question was, is there a reason why the two main characters not, you know, if you ask Stephen that, he'll say, what do you think? Because he really wants you to interpret that, all of that how you want to interpret it. We've heard lots of different interpretations. Some people said, well, the color stuff was all a dream. My interpretation is that this is a movie about abuse and about escape from abuse. Yeah, that's right. And it and enabling also. And so there's, in the case of Patton's character, you know, he's the abuser both places. And in the case of Karen Black's character, this is my interpretation, you know, she's the victim of both. You had a question.
Yeah. As sort of as independent filmmakers, how do you go about distributing this film now and again?
Well, this is the first time we've seen it projected.
Thank you for being a part of it.
You've been really.
We're trying to find our way around London, and we don't know where we are. So we're from Kansas. There's a road every mile in Kansas. All right, we're trying to get to Panton Street for dinner. And I think, hell, I don't know where it is.
Oh, perfect! The bus drove by. We got perfect.
Well, it's around the corner to the left, I'm told. Nobody's guiding you. This could be a disaster, huh?
Rain Dance was well. First of all, it was like seeing the movie for the first like real cut of it. And the first thing that happens is this announcement in a very British accent that I thought was fake. I thought it was like a joke. It was like an announcement that there was explosives in the building. Remember? I didn't know that. I mean, I thought it was. I couldn't tell if it was real or not because I was so jet lagged. And then it was real. And then they were like. I was like, holy shit, are we gonna like blow up? And then the film had like sound issue. I mean, that was wild.
The aesthetic beauty and fine wavelengths of the images exists in contradistinction to the apparent message. The apparent message is intolerance of anybody who's different and things like that. But the aesthetic wavelength is so fine that I lost myself in the images. Karen Black is one of the great actresses on the planet at the moment, and anything she does I would have an interest in. There's a list of 500 people who call themselves sales reps, or foreign sales reps, or producers reps. It amounts to being an individual broker for your film. I have talked at least a sentence or two to every one of those people. Of the 500, 485 of them demanded an upfront advance and expenses while they're trying to sell your film. In my universe, when you pay somebody for something, you should know what it is you're going to get. None of them would guarantee a result. So my view is, why should I subsidize their business if they're not going to guarantee me something? There are 15 producers reps who said they didn't care about an advance, they cared about the picture. Those would be the guys I would deal with.
You know, maybe there is a need for a producer's rep out there, particularly in this age when there's such a proliferation of independent films. There's so much competition, and it's like any product. You need to have it out in front of the right people. You need to have the right person selling it. I think we're only going to just see more and more independent films as time goes on here, and which is a great thing. And everybody wants it to get to the right place. And so I think there's probably a role for some sort of a middleman as working for the producer from their viewpoint.
But he's saying, I will sell it and I ain't gonna charge you anything until the money comes in, then I'll take my percentage off the top. That would be somebody to deal with. All the other producers reps are looking for ways for their trips to Cannes and Berlin to be subsidized. And I don't think anybody's in that business of subsidizing another. I wouldn't. It's like finders for production money. Some finders demand an advance. Well, why would you want an advance if you're so sure you can get me money? Why do you need an advance? Well, we have cost of doing business. Well, wait a second. Cost of doing business, isn't that your responsibility? So screw you. Why would you pay somebody to get you money to make a film without their guaranteeing it? Either they get a fee for their work, the way I charge for my consulting. When I give you my consulting data, the data is yours. I don't own the data. You do anything you want with the data. Or you get a percentage, but it can't be both. It's just not the way business works. But somehow in the film business, that's yet another mode of criminality. My definition of criminal is somebody who wants something for nothing. That's a criminal. And if a guy says to me, give me 10 grand and I'll rep your film, I would say, no, if I'm going to give you 10 grand, you're going to sell the film. Well, I can't guarantee I'm going to sell it. Well, then why would you want 10 grand? You got to put something in the table too.
I think that, that there's probably, like every business and every, whether it be government or private industry, people have relationships, people have allegiances. The guy that gets paid the most probably gets his work represented more than maybe someone who doesn't, even though they may not have as good a quality work. So, I think that there's probably some truth to conflicts of interest in the movie business as there are in other areas of business. And I'm not so sure there's really much one can do about that, because the infrastructure of the movie business is so big. And at the end of the day, it's getting your product in front of the right person. And if you can do that and they like it, you're in business. And if for some reason or another you can't, and it doesn't find its way there, sometimes really great pieces of work don't ever get seen.
So a sales rep is as valuable as he understands, duplicates your product, and can create a plan and sells you that plan, or he's not valuable. But that would instantly put out of business 485 of the 500 people who call themselves sales reps.
You get more and more and more. What do you get? You get more and more and more. What do you get? You get more. 20 years ago I knew it well, but I was just too young to understand. 20 years ago it made its mark and it was bigger than all I could comprehend. So now you're waiting by the TV. It doesn't matter who you are.
We did decide to get a sales rep, a producer's rep, to help us sell the movie, but in hindsight, I think he did very little for us, and I, at the end of the day, would have had much better success just doing it myself. When they're going to show it to all the buyers, they have a screening set up, and then they invite all the buyers to come. Some of them don't come, but usually they will send someone to come see your movie and sort of report back on it. So we had one in New York and one in LA, and A handful of buyers went to each screening. All of those independent labels, you think they want to take the risk, but the truth is, they don't. We could sit here and explain to them what Mike Patton's fans are like, or we can explain to them how to market the movie. Or, we could just do it ourselves. So I called up Landmark Cinemas and I said, I want to do this freak show tour, somewhat like a person goes on a music tour, like a musician goes on tour. So it would be just like an event showing instead of, just like the typical traditional way to showcase your movie. It's like, how many people would rather choose Sony Pictures Classics to release your movie in 2 major cities or 3 major cities for 2 weeks, and that's it, instead of showing it one time only in 14 cities on your own? Which is better?
No one has to worry, in a sense, about reactions to things. You can't. Because every human being is different from every other human being. And you're going to get all the reactions history has ever concocted. You cannot predict it. You can't have it your way. And they can't have it their way. People are going to say it's terrible. People are going to say it's wonderful. Do you know there are 1,000 ways to play Shakespearean roles? There are many, many. When you do good work, people have all these opinions. Oh, that was a great horror movie. I was really scared. Well, boring. Fine that you were scared. Okay, so, but if you do something that's got some perception or a new way of viewing something, or something brought in front of us that we haven't seen before, or some new way of looking at something, or a poetical, you're having my being a woman who killed someone and my being another woman who killed someone, and oh my God, and how those plots interlaced. It was just fantastic. It's really beautiful, and many people are hip to that. They read poetry, maybe. Maybe they read and they can see that the elements that are related and metaphorically aligned and related and similar, and how they're trading back and forth, and they can enjoy that. Well, somebody who doesn't like poetry and doesn't know metaphor and doesn't see related images, or related storylines or like that, they're not going to pay attention to it, not even going to get it. So that's who they are. I mean, they might have been reading comic books or something. As an example, and as a very lousy example, there are certain films that come out for, I think it's 12-year-old kids. At that age, a child is very interested in excretions. Pissing, vomiting, going to the bathroom, number 2. They're very, very interested in that. And there are movies like Scary Movie that pander to that set. Okay, I think they're just insane and stupid. And if you try to have a movie if Scary Movie came out in 1943, the person would have been hung by the neck. I mean, it was just, what is this? So all these things keep shifting, the form, what's acceptable, what's funny, what's commercial, there's going to be just a million shifts. So the only center I can find, which still isn't a center, is just do what's real to you.
Here are the results we've had from film festivals. We've sold out every single screening. We've had to get multiple screenings set up because sometimes, like at Rain Dance, the festival judges couldn't get tickets because it sold out so fast. So they had to set another one up, which also sold out within a couple of days. And Landmark didn't believe me. Again, just like the industry and the executives and the buyers, I had a choice. I could sit there and lecture the woman at Landmark Cinemas and tell her the truth. Or I could save myself the time, just rent all the theaters myself, knowing full well that with ticket sales, we would just cover the cost of doing it. And we wouldn't make any money, but that's not the point. We wouldn't lose any. Then we did the Freak Show tour, and we had the movie opening. 1 week it was in Boston, the next week it was in Atlanta. Some things in Landmark Cinemas management didn't necessarily work out quite well because I don't think they were quite prepared to deal with doing something like this. The only horrible thing that happened was a showing in Detroit where they showed the first half of the movie and then didn't show the last half because the print hadn't made it there because the idiots in Atlanta hadn't sent it. I understand there is nothing independent about having focus features put out your movie. I know that there's nothing independent about having the Weinstein Company do all your work for you. But these are things you need to figure out because, you know, I don't think that's what makes an independent filmmaker. And really, no one knows better than you do how to sell your movie.
No, you couldn't. This is no place for you, Jimmy. Go back.
You can't stay.
Line. Dean,
You're supposed to walk off.
I am?
Yeah, and I said wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is it after go home? I'd walk away?
Interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. Stand by.
Firecracker is the new movie by Steve Balderson. The film is also unique in that it has not been released in the traditional sense, but it is rather being toured around.
The idea came to me because of anger, really. To release this, I thought, you know, we should do something like a musician would go on tour and, you know, perform essentially the show in one city one night and then move on to the next. It's sort of a little bit more exciting to go see this movie than it is to see, you know, a movie that's going to be there for a week because you only have one chance to do it.
That's in the wrong pitch.
All right, we are back on Love Line. I'm Stryker and Dr. Drew. Mike Patton's here. And
so you're rolling Firecracker. There was a new film that just came out, and I thought that was a fantastic thrill. I was kind of disappointed that you didn't score, because of your creativity and music and everything, you didn't score the soundtrack or whatever, but are you going to maybe do that in the future for some other films or video games?
Would love to. Actually working on one right now, or I just finished one and I'm starting another one.
Scoring or being in the movie? Scoring in the movie. Nice.
The reason I actually even acted in that movie came from, it was like, you know, a friend of mine turned me on to this director, and I thought, well, maybe I can convince him to let me score the damn thing. Right. And he was really adamant about me acting in it. It's a very weird, strange, independent movie, but pretty cool. It's a good-looking film, and I played 2 roles in it. Like, so it's a hell of a way to get your feet wet.
Interrupt me, motherfucker.
Well, I can't. I didn't hear the money come, and I'm like, cut.
When I watched the movie, I also remember that certain parts of it, Steve had a fart machine that, like the really serious parts that I guess he edited out.
Well, like I said, my mama, you know, wow. My God, you holy mother.
Gas, eh, Susan?
I don't, yes. Oh my gosh. I better go back. I don't feel good.
The funny thing is, as soon as all these companies knew we were going to be doing this, they all started acting like they were interested in buying our movie. And that's when the offers started coming in. And it was really, really interesting to me. It's like they didn't know what to do and how to do it, and they didn't want to take the risk, so they weren't going to do it at all. But then if we did it and we put it in theaters, then it's like, oh wow, so we could have a DVD release from a movie that was actually released in theaters, and then suddenly it's worth more to them. There was another offer from a company called Seventh Arts. They were using a company called Ventura to do the actual distribution, the actual placement of the product in the marketplace.
Maybe your message is that one message could be we all lead dual lives. There's the public presentation and there's the inner demons. And we try to get a grip on the inner demons. Maybe that is a message. There may be another message, which is there is some good in the worst of us and some bad in the best of us. So what we got to do is get a grip on things and recognize that no man or woman is perfect. I don't know. That's an okay message. That's in most great art, that message. But if the context is in a kinky crime with wonderful actors but who may not be in the A list at the moment, you would have a specific slice of the audience. You wouldn't waste your time with certain kinds of distributors. There might be other distributors who exactly want that kind of fare and are expert in disseminating it. Right now, Lionsgate has the hot end, so everybody who's made a horror film with dismemberments and weapons is taking it to Lionsgate. Can you imagine those people who sit and watch the films all day? They probably have barf bags right next to where they work.
So, you know, it's sort of like throwing dice. You know, it's a timing thing. You know, what moment is this person watching your movie, you know? And then I think Maybe sometimes there's movies that are more generally accessible, right? Or there's something that for some reason everybody at the same time attaches to and says that's great, right? But I think that the great thing about, what you've done with your movie is you've waded through all that and been, I'm sure, incredibly disappointed every one of those phone calls of, working out or not working out, or gotten excited at times or not. But in the end, you just started telling people what this movie was to you. And the minute you were able to do that, people started responding to it. I think people like to know. I think that's why people like to go see movies with movie stars. They know what they're getting. They're going to see somebody who they relate to for some particular reason, or who's acting the style they love, or they have attached to that. They feel familiar. Wouldn't you rather have dinner with some of your friends than a bunch of strangers? It's kind of like that, as people start to feel familiar with things. Yeah. I think that's why marketing departments really are so important for big, huge movies that need to make tons of money. They really need to, spend tons of time getting the word out really far, the more money you need to make back, but also get really specific about who is going to be interested in this movie, and let's get to those people. It's a whole entire business.
After that, when I was preparing Firecracker and putting it together, I learned more about having adult relationships and how to become an adult in that process. So, there was a lot of growing up to do there, and once you start aging and you start, realizing that life is really fleeting and you're only here for a little bit, so you better do what's important at the time, then it changes your perspective a little bit. Right after Firecracker, when we were on that Ebert thing, and then I had just seen The Fountainhead at the same time, and the character in that movie was an architect, and it was based on Frank Lloyd Wright, I think, and he learned how to not pay attention to reviews or public or the audience, because he was making them, as a filmmaker would, to tell the story, to use the light and the space. So when I made the decision that the reason why I was making movies was to share my story, to offer these children, essentially, so that they could grow up and become part of the world, when I made the decision to have that, then everything else became irrelevant. And when Ebert did his review and then put us on his list, I thought, wow, I never have to read another review again. And so that was amazing to have that moment where, that's it. Now you can just have fun. Every artist is never necessarily totally content, because that's what keeps them making other things. But right now I'm interested in, something, and I'm going to exhaust that. Then I'll be interested in something else, then I'm going to exhaust that too. And so that's what it's about.
One of the things that I've noticed in dealing in the film business, I suppose to a greater degree than my experiences in other businesses that I'm involved in, is that there is a hierarchical nature to it. When you grow up in a small town, everybody knows everybody. Hell, everybody's related to each other. So the vagabond on the street may well be your mother's second cousin.
The industry doesn't understand what kind of marketing we did for Firecracker when it was in theaters. I don't think they understand the type of marketing we did on our website. And when we tell them, no matter how we tell them, they don't get it. They didn't take it seriously. And they didn't take us seriously. So they came up with this whole campaign that just didn't work. And it's gross. And the proposals were really, really bad.
I remember one time we had a business and we had several hundred employees, and I went through the list and I was related one way or another to about 80 of them. Well, in that kind of an environment, it doesn't work very well to have real hierarchical relationships. Certainly there's hierarchy in terms of decision making, but in terms of interpersonal relationships, we're all just citizens of this town, and we're all just employees of this business, and we're trying to make it be as successful as we can make it be. That is how I grew up. That is how Mimi, my wife, at the time, how we raised our kids, was to view life as everybody's on equal footing in terms of the human being.
Seventh Arts didn't tell Ventura, probably. Ventura had no idea that we already had a marketing campaign. They asked me if I would be involved with the conference call, and I said no, because I knew that all they were going to do was lecture me on how they're the professionals and I'm not, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So I didn't want to do that, so I told them no, we weren't going to have a conference call, and that they just needed to do the artwork that I wanted them to do. Besides, we'd already done the artwork. I mean, we gave them so much stuff to do, like all the files and everything, like all the high resolution stuff. It was all color corrected, it was all completely finished, and I don't know why they didn't use it at first, but it looks like they're going to. So, at this point, I guess we'll see what happens.
The film business really seems to have an element of I'm better than you because, and then you can sort of fill in the blank about that. I'm better than you because I've been nominated for the following prizes, or I'm better than you because my film has been in Sundance and yours hasn't, or I'm better than you because I know so-and-so and you don't. And that's pretty foreign to me.
It's never a good idea for anyone in advertising to change the brand or the logo or the look in the middle of your marketing campaign. So like Landmark Cinemas had our poster up, a few weeks before the movie was there, and there are thousands and thousands of people who didn't go to the movie, but they saw the poster in the theater. So when they're in the video store and they see the picture on the front of the DVD, they're going to remember having seen that, and then they're going to want to rent it. Or the chances of them renting it are higher than if the picture on the front of the disc was different, and then they would have no association with it.
I either have to say, wow, I am so honored to meet you because you've won 3 Emmys and been nominated for 4 more. Tongue in cheek. But if I do that, I discover that then sometimes it works better for me. So I resist putting people on a pedestal, yet when I do, sometimes it improves communication. When I don't, it's almost as though I don't exist. I think Steve has encountered these same things, probably much more so than I have. My interactions are fairly infrequent, whereas his are on a daily and weekly basis. I'm sure that it's very unnerving to the people in the industry who are comfortable with that hierarchical communication process to have us just picking up the phone and calling and missing all the levels of the bureaucracy. But that's just sort of our style.
People who teach in film school or art school, by definition, are failed artists and failed filmmakers. Why would they teach otherwise? So those methods and routes they followed didn't work, but they're teaching them because they want to be right. Everybody wants to be right. Everybody is right. So except for the rare individual, and I'm happy to include myself in that because I teach one class at Cal Arts because I was asked to by the head of the department. The main place I teach is Art Center, where to teach there you have to be working in the field, and that's why it's the best art school overall. You have to be working. You can't be a failed artist and teach at Art Center. There's, of all the arts that I know, of all the professional arts, they're the fewest known and published rules. Music is even more organized than film. Film, it's almost as if you keep knocking on the door loud enough and long enough, eventually it might crack open, and if what you have to offer is aligned with the values of money and broad audience appeal, then you're in. If you knock on the door, it opens, and it's not aligned, you're out. For instance, I think it remains to be seen how Darren Aronofsky does. He made Pi. He says, or various press say, that it cost $40,000 to make it. I talked to the single investor in it, and he said it cost $400,000, and he was pissed at hell that the word got out that it was $40,000, because he wants his money back. He then made Requiem for a Dream, which won a huge amount of critical acclaim. I don't know if it made money, quote unquote. Then he did the third one, the recent one, the kind of the sci-fi about the various worlds, and I don't think it was successful, especially relative to its cost. So I think it remains to be seen what's going to happen with him. It's a strange game. So the question would be, in sports, you can learn the rules. They're published in the rule book. And that's the first thing every player and coach learns is the rules. What are the rules for the film business? Nobody knows. I guess we could say the internet has made an accessibility available to everybody, if you can just find that audience. And I'm certain that with a film that you would make, or I would make, or a number of our friends would make, we could access more people in one keystroke and sell more copies than if it were sitting on the shelf at Blockbuster. Does that create the kind of effect we want it to? I don't know. I think it's too soon to know, but it would seem as if the internet is going to be the great divider, the great separator between men and boy and woman and girl.
To play the message, press 1.
Steve, it's Sandy Dick for the third and final time. Just saying, hey, say hi to Margaret Cho. She's a good friend of mine. And I'd love to see the film that you're talking about.
The entire new movie is based on my family to some extent. All the characters are loosely based on people that I know, that I'm related to. Right now, we have Christian Campbell, Jane Weedland, Edie McClurg, Mink Stoll, Margaret Cho, Marion Ross, Jim Meskimen, Courtney Chase, Amy Kelly, maybe Paul Rubens, maybe Laurie Metcalf, maybe Alan Cumming, and that's it.
You want to know about Clark? What I know about Clark? He reminds me a ton of my dad. A ton. I just remember that scene where he's talking about how everybody says that this business, or it can't be done this way in Wamego, or it's got to be done this certain way, and Clark's just adamant that it can be done, and it can be done the same as Pep Squad, Firecracker could be done, and there was nobody that was going to tell him different or prove differently, and the beauty of it is he was right.
Hi there.
Doug.
Doug?
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Come in, I guess, at this point.
Make fun.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be?
Specialty food store. Sort of a Nina DeLuca meets an art gallery. We're a very loud, boisterous, everybody talks at once and then talks louder, and my sister Kay really does talk in all capital letters.
She has no volume control. So when she's speaking to you, whether it's indoors, outdoors, whether you're a block away or sitting in front of her, it's at the same level.
Chuck, this is the God's truth.
Are we going to eat or do the gift first?
I think we're going to eat. But listen to what happened. Nobody's paying attention. Chuck started out giving these the first people that came. No, but they live about 20. They lived about 20.
He the one that had an affair with the maid?
No, he did not have an affair with anybody.
So is this poster the Midwinter plot?
That is.
See the guy there with the big.
No, there's a glare on it. Actually.
It's the Midwinter Schlag.
Look at it.
I'm sorry, I don't want the camera.
Have you ever seen those large testicles hanging off of the back of a semi? I've always been wondering what they were. So I was talking to Selene on the phone. I'm telling her, describing these to her, and she's like, bumper nuts! So if you go to bumpernuts.com, you'll see these things. I got the peach ones for product placement in the movie because Christian Campbell's character is this really trashy guy. I'm gonna have his car have them hanging off the back, but we're gonna paint flame on them with American flag on the top.
Nice.
Well, no, you have to you get, okay, here's the license plate, right. And you attach something here so that they go like this when you're driving.
In a big city, to succeed and achieve the top of your field, you probably have to become very, very good at one or two things. In small town America, to succeed and achieve and be at the top of your field, you have to be good at a lot of stuff. Do you have to be the best at any one thing? No. But you better be able to run your own business in a small town in the middle of Kansas. You got to be a half decent accountant, a pretty dadgum good personnel administrator, you know? And so it's more about being well-rounded and versatile, not a specialist. You know, everybody says, well, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do this and you got to do that. And you start doing all those things that everybody says you got to do, and you add it all up, and you got a $2 million budget.
Right.
You know, I had the opportunity this past year. I was asked by the governor of Kansas to serve on a task force for independent filmmaking in Kansas, for filmmaking in Kansas. And they put me on a committee that included some filmmakers from the Kansas City area. I actually was rather offended, if I'm really want to be honest. The comments that came from these folks was that if you don't spend $2 or $3 million on a film, you're really just an amateur. We had a meeting shortly after the Roger Ebert review of Firecracker that gave us 3.5 stars and out of 4, and here's a film that was well under, you know, those limits in terms of out-of-pocket expenses. And yet we were being called amateurish because we didn't have a big budget.
Some people are of the mindset that, you know, you still need to spend $1 million at least to make a good movie. I think that's preposterous, and I think Steven's, you know, film has shown that you can make a very high-quality film, and it's not just Steven's film. And there's lots and lots of them that we've all seen that don't cost that amount of money, don't have to.
The choice then becomes: are you going to make the film or not? Because we don't have $2 million. To do that, you can't go to LA and hire experienced everything.
Right.
You just can't. So we sat down and we talked about what are the traits. I think the first AD, a big chunk of it is persuasion. How do you get people to do stuff they don't really want to do? It's a little painful, but it's going to be good for them and they're going to enjoy it in the end. I mean, isn't that what a first AD does? Yeah. And isn't that what a personal trainer does? Exactly. So, you know, maybe it's a stretch, maybe it isn't.
You know, in New York City, there's the dog walker, the babysitter, the housekeeper, you know, the car washer. I mean, specialized. And in the movie business, that's the way it is too. And so, you know, the set builder, the carpenter, the light guy, you know, the makeup guy, you can't afford that, so you did it all. And you figured out how to do it all. But the mindset is that there's people that's what you have to do.
You know, making an independent film compared to a studio film is like the difference between being an independent businessman manufacturer and working for Caterpillar. They got all the money over here. They got, you know, we went to a trade show right after Firecracker. Caterpillar spent over $2 million on their exhibit. I've got 10 by 20, you know, and I want to be noticed too.
Right.
And I'm thinking. And I realize I can't compete with Caterpillar on Caterpillar's terms. So I've got to think out of the box. So what we created, and that's about the size of this room, 10 by 20, a little bit bigger than this. we took the Enigma, Selene Luna, the little stripper, and Pleasant, the three-breasted woman, and we created a sideshow. This trade show. It was the American Mining Congress mining show. And we put on a sideshow once an hour. And the people streamed by our booth. And we ended up, they give out 8 awards for marketing at this show. And we won 2 of them.
Oh, you're kidding?
I kid you not. but I can't compete with CAT on their terms.
Exactly.
I gotta do it on totally different terms. And that's what independent film is like. I mean, you can't do it based upon how Hollywood does it.
Now, what tips would you have for me, being specifically Steve's first AD?
He is not into can't. We can't do that because SAG won't let us. We can't do that because the makeup person isn't here. We can't do. He'll cut you to your knees. What he wants. Here's the situation. How can we do it? Here, the makeup person isn't here. We need to film this scene. What's it going to take to do it?
Yesterday.
Hey, Steve, Rod again. Got an agreement from your dad, and I'm going to review that over the weekend. I fully intend to fund this deal. I may even do it by myself. You must be looking at other people, which you have to. But I'd like to have, if I can put the money up by July 15th, which will not be a problem, I'd like to be able to get first right of refusal on any additional funds that are needed. If you guys go over budget or whatever, I'd like to have first right of refusal to take in the rest.
Until it's done, it's not done. Not doing anything until the money's in the bank. I think they're probably pretty legitimate in terms of what they do, the real estate deals and all that stuff, and I think there's money there. We've got to be prepared for whatever date it is to come and go, and he doesn't do it.
Right.
And that's why you've got to go to Chicago, and that's why I dug out that itinerary. And
I mean, I'm not counting on him doing anything until it comes in.
well, God knows we've been down the path 100 times. We know what it's like.
Bye.
I have a group in Chicago that said they're really, really interested, but they didn't give me a number, so I have no idea whether they're thinking of investing $25,000 or $100,000. Like, I just have no concept. They can afford to pay for the whole thing, but I have no concept of what they're thinking.
Raising money for an independent motion picture is about like having dental surgery with no Novocaine. It's the most painful ordeal. It's like dental surgery that goes on for months. We started out, we were approached by some young filmmakers that said they were connected in a town west of here by the name of Salina, Kansas, and they were sure they could raise the money for Wilbert Brummett. So we met with them and we crafted legal agreements and paid lawyers to write agreements, and long story short is that it really went nowhere, so we were back to the square one again. I know Steve has talked to lots and lots of people about funding. He has been to Chicago twice, met with some people there. We're meeting with some folks in Kansas City. As of today, while this is filming, we're hopeful that within a week or two we'll be able to make an announcement. But I'll tell you what, we've learned through all of this that until the money's in the bank and the papers are signed and the contracts are sealed, it's not a done deal. It takes a lot of work to raise the money if you ever do get it.
Hi. Do you have a few minutes? Okay, so their place is really, it's the top floor of the building, and they had a huge veranda, like terrace thing that was all oriental. Like, it was really neat, actually. And we ate outside because it wasn't windy. Everything. Well, it's right over the park there, and the marina and the aquarium and all that stuff. Yeah, well, it's on the lake. But it's so weird because you know how much it is. But like the quality and the craftsmanship of like the building didn't look like it was great. Some of the rooms that are modern look good because they look like some of the pages from that magazine that you get. But the other rooms were sort of like a lot of round hallways and round rooms. And when we were filming, I was looking for pots and pans after I got there, and I opened up something under the mini bar, and there was a huge bong for marijuana. I mean, so it was just, that's the type of people there. It was also filthy. Like, I had to clean the kitchen before I could cook in it. It was good. I actually made a really good pasta with garlic. I mean, it was weird though because they weren't there. Like, he took me into the kitchen and said, here's all the stuff. If you need anything, holler, I'll be in my office. Like, I did all the prep cooking with nobody there. And it was just sort of weird. I would notice that venture capitalist guy would ask me specific questions every now and again, to gather data, and he was trying to like make it casual. And then of course they asked me, how are your financing efforts going? And I said, we're talking to a guy who's putting money into escrow on the 15th. We'll know whether or not he's serious after that. And we shared stories about, you can never really tell until the last minute whether someone's serious or not. The only thing that they kept saying was the same thing they always said, well, keep us posted. We're definitely interested, keep us posted, tell us what happens. So it seems to me like, if they're sitting around smoking pot all the time, they're really laid back. And so that's it. Bye.
This whole business is just crazy. And there are so many layers to it. I don't know what else to call them. If you don't know what you're doing in production, you can have a film and it sits there and nothing ever happens. Getting it into film festivals is difficult. You know, there's a secret life to film festivals. Who knows whom, and will they even watch your film? And I don't even stand it. They get 2,000 entries. How are they ever supposed to watch 2,000 90-minute, 2-hour films? Then once you get your film done, you get it into some film festivals, then you hope that you can get some distributors to come watch it because maybe one of them will buy it. Oh, fat chance. They have 1,000 reasons why it's not the right film. You know, what they want is, we just had, you know, somebody just had a big, huge hit with The Meteor Strikes Earth. And so now everybody's looking for a Meteor Strikes Earth movie. And of course, you know, what I have is a romantic comedy. Oh, well, nobody wants those. Let's say you finally get a distributor. This happened to us with Firecracker. We finally got a distributor. It's all, you know, we've signed the contracts. We're in the middle of putting together the final delivery items. That distributor gets bought by another company, and the new company, like, pulls the marketing. We didn't know that's what was going on, but it was very interesting. Steve was set up to go to a Blockbuster convention. He was taking the Enigma, and we were told by the company that they wanted us to go. We were going to pay for our own way, and then we get an email, oh, they already have guest actors or whatever, celebrities for their booth. They don't need us. And what's been confirmed here lately is that it's, come on in, we're just, take a look around. What's been confirmed lately is that the new owners decided to pull the marketing on Firecracker. And so here you are, you think you've got your distributor, and then the distributor isn't interested. Ironically, the very week that we learned this, the New York Times ran an article on Crash, which won the Oscar for Best Picture, and how the people, the producers and the people with deferred compensation had not been paid. And guess who surfaces in that article in the New York Times is the very same company that is not paying us. Now, we're told today, I got an email that says you will be paid in a few weeks, very soon. But I'll tell you what, it's crazy. I can hardly wait till there's direct digital download, and we can make our own movies and do our own promotion and sell them over the internet, and to hell with Hollywood. Oh, hi. I wanted to give you an update on the film. I think we probably talked about this about a month ago. I've continued to write emails. We've still not gotten paid for Firecracker. Here it is, you know, we should have been paid almost 3 months ago. Anyway, so I got an email this morning from our producer's rep. Let me read it to you. This is hysterical. No, it's not hysterical. It's really sad. He sent an email to our distributor. And in the email to our distributor, he writes, our producer's rep writes, Peter, what's the update on the payment for Fireworks? All in capital letters. Bob. So our producer's rep has now forgotten the name of our film. You know, we're paying him thousands of dollars, and he doesn't remember our name. So this is the answer back from the distributor to our producer's rep. We will have the payment made on Fireworks by the first week of September. We'll see. First week of September can come and go, and we'll see what happens. I'm on the verge of calling a lawyer, but once you take that step, it's like, then we'll be battling with lawyers, so I'm trying to avoid it. We did get paid the $20,000 from Cinema Vault, so you can no longer say that they haven't paid. They haven't paid us for Australia. We don't know anything about Australia, we don't know anything about Germany, we don't know anything about Turkey, but they have paid us their upfront money like they promised. We've not gotten paid anything from First Look, Seven Arts. They promised, for the fourth time, they promised they would pay us last week. So that's like, for 6 weeks now we've been promised you'll be paid next week, 4 times. It is October 20th, and we should have been paid no later than August 1st. So it's now August, September, almost 3 months late. On DVD, July 4th. And we were to be paid within 30 days of the release date. They owe us right now, they owe us $60,000. I don't know if they owe any more than that or not. Until we get their reporting, we don't know. But we should have had a payment of $60,000. How much should you spend on a movie? Not as much as you used to. And I think they ought to be made for niche markets, and the cost ought to be commensurate with what you think you can get out of the niche market.
My friend Peter Deckham, my college classmate, became an $850 an hour entertainment attorney. He negotiated the Matsush to buy out of MCA, so he's a big player. He pointed this out. The average age wasn't the question, he said. The question was the tenure, the average length of time that a studio exec held his job. That's 18 months. The average length of time from the inception of a movie till it's on the screen is 2 years. What's wrong with that picture? That means anybody running a studio now who's putting a number of projects into production will not be around when it's shown. So nobody will ever get the reward or the penalty for what they produced that was good or bad.
Speaking of wasted production time, has anybody seen the Lily Tomlin clips on YouTube from Huckabees?
No.
Okay.
I heard about this.
You have to go see these.
Leave me the fuck alone! Fuck you, motherfucker! Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! Get the fucking thing together, fuck you!
The studio execs have tended to be younger than we think. They've tended to be anywhere from mid-20s to late 30s. Now, what does that suggest to you? There's no business in the U.S. that is run by people in their mid-20s to late 30s. They're all 50s, 60s, and above. That suggests to me the studio heads aren't really the guys calling the shots. It's the source of the money. All studios are in debt. There are no studios in profits. Warner, Time Warner, AOL Time Warner, the largest entertainment or media combine in the world, is something like, and this you could check, $20 billion in corporate debt. Could you get $20 billion in debt? Personally, I don't think so. By the time it's $10,000, $20,000 of credit cards, they come after you pretty heavy. So what does that suggest? That suggests to me that there are people above the guys running the studios. They would be the bankers, who keep them alive, who keep those guys alive.
God damn it! You fucked it up! God damn you!
So I think the studio executives are young because the guys running the show, the boards of directors, the bankers, who are providing these endless, apparently infinite credit lines, those are the guys running the show. And they're not just looking at how much money is made, they're looking at positioning, they're looking at ways to get their products. All the heads of studios, at the viewpoint of board, from the level of boards of directors and up, are also on the boards of directors of the pharmaceutical companies. The amount of money they lose on films is trivial compared to the amount of money they make on the drugs that they sell.
There are people that are taught if you yell at someone, you get the results. But it's not true. And if the first AD is running around the set screaming at people, nobody's going to like him, and it's not going to be effective. If I said, "Could you hand me that?" You'll hand it to me, nicely. If I said, "Give it to me," give it to me. You'll hand it to me, but you're not going to like to. And so, I would rather work with someone who is being friendly and nice and achieving the results than someone who's just yelling and pulling their hair out, because it's a waste of energy.
Hey, bitch! I'm not here to be fucking yelled at. I worked on this fucking thing for 3 fucking years. Now I'm having some fucking cunt yell at me in front of the fucking crew when I'm trying to fucking help you, bitch!
Why don't you fuck your whole movie? Because that's what you're doing.
See, if my real product, where I'm making my real bucks, is selling a psychotropic drug for $8 a tab, which cost me 20 cents to manufacture, and if I'm hiring a 30-year-old kid to run the studio, he looks good, he drives a Ferrari, he knows how to wear sunglasses 24/7 so you can't ever make eye contact with him. He's the perfect foil for my purpose. Then when he starts getting tired or too doped up or too much in disagreement, I fire him and I bring in the next one, because my purpose is being served.
Why do we compare ourselves to what the big guys are doing? Why do we compare ourselves to what each other are doing? You know, why does it matter?
Well, and I think when Brian says that, like, the people in Hollywood, if you will, are making the films they want to make, I don't think that's true either. I think we have a much better chance of making the film that we want to make because we don't have $20 million,
I agree with
and we
that.
don't have, 12 or 14 suits that are more worried about how this is going to play.
Well, I do have good news. We received the wire from 7 Arts yesterday. So that would have been November 7th. They should have paid us July 4th. So July, August, September, October, November. So 4 months late, we did get paid what they said they'd pay us. Will we ever see additional revenue? I think it's so convoluted between First Look and Ventura and 7 Arts, and my hunch is that they've dropped everything. We have a clause that says we can get the film back if they're not promoting it. So we may end up with the film back sometime soon. Some, I guess, bad news to go along with the good news, and that is Cinema Vault, who did pay us the advance fee like they said they would, although they were late. Today I get an accounting from them. Well, I had done the whole deal with Australia, with Shock Films. And at the last minute, Cinema Vault said, why don't you let us handle all the details, finish it out, delivery. So I said, okay, you take your percentage, but I need the rest of the money to pay for the licenses and stuff. Since it's a deal I did and you didn't market it. It's not fair, I don't think, for you to withhold the money that would come to us to cover your marketing expenses for other festivals and stuff. On the phone they had agreed with me. Well, I get the accounting today and they didn't pay us. They deducted what we would have gotten from Australia from their expenses. Hollywood is out to line the pockets of middleman, assistant after assistant, and assistant to the assistant, and they all set themselves up to get a paycheck, and it comes out of the creative material, and the creator seldom sees anything for it.
I heard back from the people in Chicago. This is what they sent me. The other investor, after watching some of your work, said, I won't fund anyone who puts a burning flag into a movie. 2 others expressed varying concerns about the chances for the film's success, citing things ranging from not thrilled with some of the casting choices to being unconvinced that the script was capable of reaching an intended audience to not convinced your previous directing examples demonstrate an ability to pull off a light-hearted screwball comedy. That's like telling a painter you aren't sure if he can paint a vase of roses because all he's done is painted portraits. It's stupid. Wilbert Brummett and any movie costing the same has taken a back seat for the time being. Instead, I've decided to make films for much less. I was 22 when I wrote the script for Firecracker and I turned 32 in January. To do the same thing over and over again is insanity. If things are going the way they are, if I remain on this path, I will be 40 years old before Wilbert Brummett is made. Then, I'll be 47 when the movie after that gets made, and then 55 for the movie after that. I've recently read about how George Lucas won't make another $100 million film, how he'd rather make 100 $1 million films, and how David Lynch is moving to digital so that he doesn't have to rely on a crew either. If I had $300,000 today, I would rather make 6 films for $50,000 each instead of just 1 movie.
At the last minute, the investors dropped out. And I've always felt that that's the reason for that is that investors often don't want to make a movie, they want to make money.
I challenge you to a fight. I dare you. Prom night. If you're not there, I will ruin you. You are no match for me, you fucking bitch!
Yeah, I'm disappointed, but now I don't know, we're not gonna make it, so that's a little bit upsetting.
I had made enough records and written enough books, and after a while you just gotta say, no, this is my artistic vision, and if you want me to change it, I'm not gonna change it, and I'd rather just not do it or not do it yet.
My whole thing now, just as a filmmaker today, is that when I was watching The Da Vinci Code, the movie that Ron Howard did.
Do you like that movie, by the way? Just really quick.
Well, what they did was, no, they took a 4-hour movie and edited it down so quickly that you couldn't keep up.
Right.
If it had been 4 hours, it would have been really great, probably. But I noticed that they didn't film a lot of Paris. And I was so disappointed because I was so excited to see the movie after having been there, to see the sights again, that I thought, well, why couldn't they do that? And then I thought, you'd have to have more money than you can imagine to like close off the Rue de Rivoli in front of the Louvre.
Yeah.
And they don't even have that much money. So the only way to shoot on that street is to take a camera out of your bag with like 2 or 3 other people and run there and shoot it and leave without telling anyone and just without making a big commotion. And I think
saves a lot of money.
Well, but it also saves a lot of time.
All of Steve's movies, or a lot of them, have like similar people in it. It causes an amazing continuity between the films, but also like it's a talented enough cast so that it's disparate and it doesn't seem like it's. But I love that whole ensemble thing, and the fact that Steve respects everyone else's creative input. So that was just a bummer that it wasn't going to get made. But on the other hand, I really thought that Phone Sex was an interesting and great project.
98.9 The Rock. Filmmaker Steve Balderson has just one question. What is sexy? Those 3 small words, 60 seconds of tape, and a cast of porn stars, punk rockers, and pop culture psychos. Icon Magazine says it's an amusing, candid, and perverse street. Casey Starr says it's funny, jaw-dropping, always interesting. It may be the purest expression yet of just how diverse human sexuality can be, and it can be yours if you're the 9th caller right now.
But that combination of tragedy and beauty, I think, is very, very sexy.
How did you get the idea for Phone Sex?
In this frustration of being stuck and helpless feeling because I couldn't get the $300,000 I needed to make a film. So I said, okay, money has nothing to do with it. So what do I have here now? What is here with me? How can I be self-sufficient? And I'm sitting at my desk in Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, and I look at my phone, I see a tape recorder, and I see my address book. And I'm like, oh, that was it. And I sent the invitations out, and then a week and a half later, I had all the calls.
And
Really, that was it.
Of all the things to ask, bang, 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 bang. That was it.
Well, okay, guys.
I don't know that well.
So we're on in 5 minutes. I'm just going to get a release form for you guys to sign, and then we'll go and answer some calls.
What's the date?
February 2nd. It's Groundhog Day.
Oh my God.
Duh.
What happened? Did he see his shadow?
No, he did not.
What does that mean?
Early spring.
Oh, good. An independent filmmaker is someone who's not dependent. And I think
on what? Money?
Anything. Just anything.
On anything.
If you are dependent upon it, you're not independent. But see that's just such a huge generalized way of saying it. But what I also mean is that independent film has become a genre.
Well, it's a hit buzzword, and the industry kind of caught on to it as a way to sell more of their movies.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the movies that we make.
Killer is that it didn't cost me any long distance services.
Because everybody called you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
Right.
So literally all it cost was, the cassette tapes that I used to record and then printing the discs.
Okay. And I shall explain how it works. You have to, can you see yourself on this monitor here? You have to really kind of sit tight, squeeze it together.
The only real independent filmmaker is the guy who owns his camera, he owns his tripod, sets it up, they turn it on, they step in front of it, and let loose a script out of their mind without any dependency of any cast member, a production crew, or anything. And when they're done, they turn it off and distribute it. In the purest form, if you need help from anyone else, if you need funding, equipment, or talent from anyone else, you are dependent on that reality.
Yeah, so the calls will come in on these phones.
People think that I am obsessed with bowel movements because 35 years ago I made a movie in which the bowel movements were featured. I've had people tell me that they've thought about sending me some. It's like, why? You see, I was so looking forward to spending 5 weeks in Kansas. I just thought, well, I love location shoots. I really like them. I think it's really fun to go away someplace that you don't live. It's a real vacation. Plus, it's doing the thing that you love most,
right?
Which is making a movie. I knew many of the people that were going to be in Wilbert, so I figured it would be a fun group to hang out with. I think we should still do it.
I love the idea of it's not even necessarily. You could be fixing your lunch while you're listening to a message about what is sexy. Because the audio quality of a phone message isn't the greatest, so it forces you to really listen and pay attention to each word. It's such a great idea.
Now, have you seen Phone Sex? It's really fun, and Steve is a wonderful filmmaker that I'm looking very forward to working with.
Well, if you go to dikanga.com,
That's DIKENGA.
then just click on phone sex.
The concept is where things have to go. There's material out there. There's ways to use film and go direct to the people. It's what the music industry's doing. I remember visiting with Gina Rollins when we were at Stockholm Film Festival in 1998, I think, with Pep Squad, and she was being honored. And I had a chance to just sit and visit with her a little bit. I didn't realize she was married to John Cassavetes. And she was telling me how he would act in films to get a good big paycheck so that he could go make his independent films. And that always stuck with me, and I thought, well, you know, we got to figure out a way to make some money so that we can go then do what we want with the money. And I think that's what we're experimenting with and see what we can do with it.
Really good, actually.
Okay, I need a drink.
Yeah, me too.
I brought a bottle too.
Oh, good.
Hello!
What's up? Is there a cover?
I scored his last film, Firecracker. Oh, cool. Yeah. So anyway, he told me to come on out and check it out. Actually, he told me to call in and actually leave a what is sexy, and I was like, I don't know.
You know when you're high enough on 5 or 6 different substances and you're like, let's smoke a quaalude. And I was like, let's just include some violence with that. Let's smoke it. I wouldn't recommend smoking them, but eating them definitely. And maybe inserting them.
There's no way I can follow that.
You
know what, I do have another.
I am German and Czech.
So am I.
Really?
Yeah,
It's a great combination.
Isn't it? I really like it. German and Czech and Norwegian. So I got the good cheekbones like you've got and all kinds of stuff.
The word freedom is a fascinating word. We say freedom. What do we mean? Freedom from some things is what we mean. Alfred Hitchcock, I don't think, experienced non-freedom. He was fortunate. What he wanted to make films about was very pleasing to studio executives, to other filmmakers, to critics, and audiences. John Ford rarely complained of studios recutting his films. He won more Oscars than anybody, and his films were popular. Robert Altman, was he unfree? I don't think so, by his standards. He made films quickly and relatively inexpensively, and he had big stars willing to work for him, as Woody Allen does. Those guys were fortunate, in a way, because what they were interested in was aligned with the other values that you mentioned. Then there are those of us, like Sam Fuller, whose concepts weren't directly playing to studio head types. There were some audiences, but they weren't huge. So he suffered. He didn't have that freedom. Quentin Tarantino is maybe a swing case, because some of what he likes to do is directly appealing to studio heads, money people, and so on. But other films he wants to make, he can't get made. So I think freedom is a relative term. To have freedom, we have to know about freedom from what. And if an individual, such as yourself or a number of the people that I work with, have messages and viewpoints that are a bit off the mainstream and are concerned about things that are not of tremendous universal concern, whether or not they should be, you would need to divorce yourself from that game, because that game does have its known barriers and purposes and so on.
The future really is based on the spirit of the guy. That's what makes art. That's all that makes art.
But I think that's what keeps a lot of people in our culture from being true to themselves, because they're so conscious of, they want everybody to like them, that they're not really being honest. This eyeball, this plane right here, is seeing this. If I move here, I'm seeing this. If I move here, I'm seeing this. So no matter what, no two people in the world see the same thing the same way. The shadows on his face, from my point of view, are different than they are here. But as a director, you can capture that image, and then you force the audience to see from your point of view. And that's the most amazing thing. Even then, it's like they're seeing it from your perspective, but what they've learned in their life up until that point, the experiences that they've had, will make what they look at have a certain kind of meaning. And that meaning you cannot control.
Somebody wanting to be a filmmaker, I'd say learn the classics. It's like learning scales and learning Bach and Beethoven and Mozart. Ford, Hawks, Hitchcock, Lang. Then you get to their predecessors, Fuller, Aldrich, Penn. Anybody should should see the films of Stan Brakhage, one of the great artists in any medium of the 20th century. Made 400 films in his lifetime. Almost none of them had actors or sound. It was just abstract imagery. He explodes open the universe, and he gives it back to you in its component parts. He was legally blind, and he would hand paint and scratch the film, but in an organized and orderly fashion. Just brilliant, brilliant.
The only thing that matters is, are you telling your story from your point of view with total clarity and confidence, or are you trying to tell it so that someone else is pleased? Because if you're trying to tell it to somebody else, to suit someone else, it's not going to work.
You know, throw away what people tell you. I mean, especially God knows in art class, they tell you all the crazy things about painting and drawing. My God. Absolutely, if you want to do something and you're fired up to do it, go and do it. And it's probably going to be great and inspired. Because it's you, it's the human spirit. There's nothing better. I don't care anything about the whole universe compared to the human spirit. That for me is it.
It's been a long fight. I didn't win it. Came here with such heart. They didn't see it. I've been in some movies. Nobody saw them. I wrote some screenplays. Nobody read them. Somebody loves me. Somebody wants me. No matter who I am, they have agreed to stand beside me, take their hand and guide me. Somebody loves me. I fought some dragons and I got injured. There's just no room here for a beginner. Oh, it takes beauty and it takes money. You're much too old, dear, and you're not that funny. Somebody loves me, somebody wants me. No matter who I am, they have agreed to stand beside me, take their hand and guide me. Somebody loves me. I am a bus girl in a Chinese restaurant. I answer phones, I sit people down. Sure, they say I have potential, but I'll go nowhere in this town. Somebody loves me. Somebody wants me. No matter who I am, they have agreed to stand beside me, take their hand and guide me.